Whenever the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, holds any of its global meetings, the world-acclaimed aviation monitor and policy implementer departs from such meeting, better placed to continue a job, the absence of which would jeopardize the world's air transportation sector. Accordingly, ICAO, never in the business of shirking its responsibility, once again gathered its members in the Nigerian capital territory, Abuja, for views and news of looking into the key areas relating to financing the development of aviation infrastructure of this global discourse. It was a No Country Left Behind initiative that spanned 20th November 2017 to 22nd November 2017 and which rode on the global banner 3rd Annual ICAO World Aviation Forum, IWAF 3. The point needs to be made that this marked the very first time ICAO was leaving its regular base, Montreal, Canada, for the International World Aviation Forum. The forum brought together high-level government officials responsible for aviation, transport and infrastructure, finance, economy and tourism, as well as key industry and financial partners. Target decisions at IWAF 3 aimed at accelerating the implementation of international civil aviation global standards and policies. Participants also had insights, shared information on best practices and fostering of partnerships which harnessed resources for sustainable aviation and development of aviation infrastructure. The key objective was to get the Abuja meeting to build on the outcomes of the 2015 and 2016 ICAO events in Montreal, Canada. A wonderful perspective to the November gathering in Nigeria was the commencement of activities on the first day with an event that deliberately relaxed the visitors into the right mood for work. A Durbar, polo, and gala dinner were part of a menu that was further enriched with a tourism appetizer. As we save details of that unique entertainment for later, the opening address of the business segment of the forum was one in which the Nigerian Minister of State for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, said the forum could not have come at a better time given the infrastructure deficit in transportation in many parts of the world. Statistics for Nigeria aptly came through in the minister's remarks.
The theme of this year's forum, financing the development of aviation infrastructure, could not have been more apt considering the infrastructure deficit in the aviation sector, not only in Nigeria, but in most parts of the world. According to the Nigeria Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan, a sum of US $775 billion is required to develop Nigeria's transportation infrastructure over the next 30 years. Along the same line, the African Development Bank estimates $35 billion per annum, 2010-2020. Of course, this is focused on the four broad sectors of transportation, transport infrastructure, electricity, rural access, water, sanitation, and ICT. This deficit, on the one hand, ladies and gentlemen, is bad, but on the other, it provides opportunity for investments. It is imperative that in this address, I praise you with the excellent business opportunities in the aviation sector of this country, Nigeria, because by its geography, Nigeria is strategically located in the Gulf of Guinea, equidistant from most locations in Africa, with a population of 173 million people, and accounts for about 50% of the West African population. The Nigerian market, of course, serves the West and Central African region with a population of 600 million. This is twice the size of the US. Notwithstanding this potential, it is sad to admit that there is absence of a very strong carrier, a major maintenance, repair, and overhaul center, an efficient and world-class airport, or even a significant catering company. Nigeria is positioned to take advantage of this opportunity, and we are conscious of it. I strongly believe that Nigeria is the place to put your money, not only because we moved up 24 places in ease of doing business recently, but more so because the rate of return on investment in Nigeria is 34%, which is one of the highest in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nigerian government, together with relevant stakeholders, developed an aviation roadmap that included, but by no means limited to, of course, investments in safety and security, infrastructure, and concession of all our airports, some 22 of them, beginning with the big four, namely Abuja, Lagos, Kano, and Port Harcourt. Then, of course, establishment of a national carrier, private sector led and driven, and then, of course, establishment of maintenance, repair, and overhaul center. Establishment of an aviation leasing company, also private sector led and driven, and development of agro-allied terminals and associated infrastructure. Then, of course, the mother one, establishment of an aerospace, aviation, and aeronautical university, and development of an airport city. In executing this roadmap, which is private sector led through PPP, the government has engaged internationally reputable transaction advisors for the various components in accordance with Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act 2007, and also in line with global best practices.
The forum, held in collaboration with African Union Commission AUC, African Development Bank AFDB, and New Partnership for Africa's Development NEPAD, addressed quite a number of expected outcomes. One of them was the establishment of a financial framework for aviation development in Africa, a point driven home by the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina.
The objective of the African Development Bank is to support the safety and security standard certification of 20 African airports by 2019. The African Development Bank is committed to supporting the Nigerian government's efforts to revitalize the aviation sector, with its focus on national airline development, aviation leasing companies, maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities, the development of aeropolis and cargo terminals for agricultural produce for exports. As the aviation sector improves, Nigeria's ease of doing business will improve even further. You will build, Mr. Vice President, on your remarkable achievements on the ease of doing business. I was very delighted to read that Nigeria has moved up so many levels in the ease of doing business, and I think we have to give it up to the Vice President and all of the team for a fantastic job.
The African continent is portrayed as a strong candidate for the much-needed aviation financing. The Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, African Union Commission, Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, gave proper expression to the magnitude of aviation's impact on the continent.
I must say, in my 25 years serving Africa, this is my first time in Abuja. So it has a very special visit to me. The African Union leadership is determined to give a strong and ambitious impetus to Africa's socio-economic development and integration agenda. We duly recognize that air transport is a dynamic mode of transport that has all the potential to speed up Africa's integration and development, which constitutes the main goals of the AU Agenda 2063. The creation of a single African air transport market was thus included in our strategy as a flagship project based on its high potential for changing the face of Africa substantively. Liberalizing intra-African air transport through the full implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision is essential to improve air connectivity, to lower fares, to ensure the sustainable development of air transport in Africa, and to contribute to economic growth, trade, investment, job creation, and integration of our continent. To give you some facts, as I'm sure you've heard in the previous speeches, aviation currently supports 7 million jobs in Africa and contributes almost $75 billion in GDP to our continent. Over the next years, African passenger numbers are expected to almost triple, to reach over 150 million in 2030. Meanwhile, cargo volumes are projected to rise at a rate of 5.7% per annum. These are compelling and hopeful statistics to boost inter-African trade and job creation. African tourism is another area for potential growth, providing long-term sustainable development of the economy, in which aviation plays a crucial role. Thus, Africa must take advantage of the benefits that aviation provides over the coming decades, and we need you all to do it.
She revealed that the single African air transport market will be launched in the January 2018 African Union Summit. The comments of the President of the Council of ICAO, Dr. Lumuyiwa Bernard Aliyu, expressly underlined the urgent work at hand. ICAO was dealing with a matter at the heart of Africa's economic progress.
ICAO World Aviation Forum supports and add value to this global planning foundation by bringing states and investors together, by helping each side to understand the other's needs in terms of practical business cases and clearly defined returns, and by fostering new partnerships between governments, private investors, donors, and financing entities. Similarly, our No Country Left Behind efforts are being refined to place greater focus not only on our standards implementation priorities, but also on the global plan targets. This is especially the case with reference to aviation infrastructure development for airports, terminals and runways, air traffic management, communications, navigation and surveillance, meteorological services, cargo transshipment, border control, aircraft maintenance, and aviation training. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but it helps us to appreciate the scope and scale of the challenge which infrastructure development presents to us.
In his address, the Nigerian Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibajo, who ably represented the boss, President Muhammadu Buhari, dropped statistics of certainty which practically took the influence of aviation in the world to a colossal level. A 2014 report has it that air traffic alone provided 62.7 million jobs globally, while direct or indirect impact by aviation accounted for 3.5% of world GDP. But Africa, according to him, is still left holding the short end of the stick in all of these. A veritable challenge yet exists.
The peculiar challenges of financing aviation infrastructure in Africa. While everyone agrees, for example, that the growth of aviation in Africa will be good for intra-African trade, will be good for African integration, and by such means improve the economies of African countries, there's little commitment to financing aviation infrastructure in Africa beyond the mere words. The evidence is that it is difficult for aviation stakeholders and even states to access financing to build or rehabilitate airports, telecommunications equipment, meteorology infrastructure, and cargo warehouses, etc. Indeed, and here I quote a background paper available at this meeting, that there is also no financing arrangement to implement the Aviation System Block Upgrades, the ASBU, of the Global Air Navigation Plan. It also appears that at least insofar as Africa is concerned, neither in the Program for Infrastructural Development for Africa, PIDA, nor in the new Partnership for African Development, NEPAD, is the development of aviation infrastructure given any priority. And so there is no better opportunity than this conference for a thorough engagement on the whys and wherefores, but more importantly, the practical steps that are required to ensure that African aviation is not left behind in the growth story of world aviation. The key to achieving this objective is collaboration.
Professor Osibajo was grateful that the forum was being held outside its headquarters in Canada for the first time. The choice of Nigeria as the ICAO meeting place game changer was duly recognized by the president's emissary. At a press conference that followed immediately, dignitaries at the forum had time to expatiate their various stances on the aviation question. The Nigerian Minister of State Aviation addressed inquiries on efforts to increase capacity of local airlines and take advantage of the huge wealth in the air, so to speak.
If you would find a government that is implementing programs and projects that are pro-people, are good enough, then believe in that government and elect them more so that they can spend time to implement their projects and programs. I am of the belief that the programs and projects of this government, and particularly those in aviation, which are the response of stakeholders, are extremely very important for continuation, and we do believe that once it is implemented, or it can be implemented between now and 2018, most of them, or 19, but the seed will be sold, and I'm sure whoever is the minister that will come will agree with us that we do need an MRO in Nigeria. He would continue.
Again, we spoke about the global figures. There are no specifics as far as the African figures in terms of contribution of aviation to GDP growth, in terms of projections, growth projections in the next 3 or couple of years that have been talked about in the global industry. So we will have specifics as per how the African market is also responding to this growth that is happening in aviation. If possible, Nigeria wouldn't mind.
For his part, President of the Council of ICAO took up the issue of aviation infrastructure in Africa. Whatever drag the situation is currently experiencing, Aliu could not help but see inevitable growth on the horizon.
The governments have competing priorities, of course. And this is the reason why I felt it right to come to Nigeria for this event.
The 1999 Yamoussoukro decision, by which African aviation would have experienced a big boost through its Open Skies decision, came up for mention at the media briefing, and reasons why it has not been implemented were taken up by the Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, Ms. Iyabo Sosina.
One of the major impediments was the fear from the implementers and the airlines that the regulatory mechanisms to manage the process of equitable process of implementation of the YD were not in place. But right now, I'm happy to tell you that they are now in place, and that in January at the summit, they will be approved by the heads of state. And I'm talking of the executing agency itself, giving backing, both in terms of the powers to the executing agency, also the dispute settlement mechanism, competition rules, and consumer protection.
We mentioned earlier the unique entertainment style that kicked off the IWAF 3. Going now to the Durbar and Polo and the colorful gala night that preceded the business session of IWAF 3, it was indeed a novel touch to commencement of a great assignment on aviation financing. Not many would have believed that the minister is a high flyer on the polo ground.
Who gets to the ball this time around? And the ball is rolled. The minister picks it up, and who goes in there? Hadi Sirika. Lovely play there by the minister. Hadi Sirika. He goes for the he loses it, and he goes for the massive pass. The minister has the ball.
This program, man.
It is wild, it is wild. I wake up, you see. Nigeria was awesome. Congratulations to the organizers. Congratulations to the government of Nigeria. Congratulations to the people of Nigeria. Well done.
I had the opportunity of seeing. So, like my colleague, I want to wish the people and the government of Nigeria all the best. Thank you for having us.
Former DG, Tourism Development Corporation, Omotayo Omotosho, later gave a moving exhortation on tourism, the tourism development way, as she put it. The eloquent broadcaster reeled out a list of attractions that await anyone who has an eye on the friendly and warm host country, Nigeria. Here's a clip of her comments.
Nigeria is blessed with multiplicity of ethnic groups, tribes, languages, rich cultural and enviable heritage, our various tourist attractions, and friendly people bid you welcome. From the capital territory here in Abuja, the therapeutic scenery of Jabi Lake, the Millennium Park, Wonderland Amusement Park, Abuja Arts and Crafts Village, to the highly resourceful men and women of Ushafa Pottery Village, that when Bill Clinton visited, he did tell me and Senator Kairat Guadabe that he must come back again just because of the wonderful people of Ushafa Village. Please give it up for Nigeria.
To take matters to a close on this edition, a soundbite from the Nigerian Minister of State for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, acts as an effective gauge of how things were projected for a forum whose ambitious search for development funds for aviation was all going quite smoothly. The minister was readily eloquent about it.
I don't want to preempt the action plan, and of course the declaration will be made. But I can assure you that Nigeria will be the best for it. Will benefit much more than any other country that is here. It's not only because we are hosting it, but because the market in Nigeria supports it. 173 million people, all traveling people. Nigerians travel for every reason, in fact for no reason at all. So I mean it's where the market is, and I do believe that we will leverage on it, and then Nigeria will benefit from it. But the action plan will decide which way to go.
And on the commencement of the ICAO 2017 Nigerian meeting with entertainment of sorts, Senator Sirika was ready with comments. Incidentally, he was speaking within the correct ambience of culture, tourism and entertainment.
To my right is the NANTA president, and to my left is you. Both of you are, in terms of tourism, and culture, you are the gurus, you are the people that Nigeria looks up to. But having said that, you see, I am an ardent believer that culture and tourism can create the wealth that oil and gas will not give to you. Culture and tourism is equal to what ICT can do to you or more.
Yes.
I have said it times and again. So I believe that Nigerians and Nigeria and the government of Nigeria and its people and the companies and the partners that are within Nigeria to begin to invest heavily their resources, their time, their brains to develop culture and tourism.
The ICAO November meeting in Nigeria remains a point to ponder for its effective tackling of financing the development of aviation infrastructure.
What we have to put right in the aviation industry is to make it operate like a normal business so that it can attract finance from whatever source.
Our second edition of the program on IWAF 3 will continue a story which even the skies must be smiling about.